Jack of diamonds, known you of old. You my poor pockets of silver and gold. Howdy ho, I'm Joe Berger. I'm Caleb's uncle, and I live in Mercer, Pennsylvania. And we're going to talk a little bit about my life and how my background has been, how my upbringing has been over the last 61 years. So we raise a toast to those 61 blessed years. I wonder what's in my Santa mug here, Caleb. A little honey and rye whiskey. Because I'll drink rye whiskey, rye whiskey. Rye whiskey, I cry. If I don't get a sip of rye whiskey, I might surely die. Well, I grew up in central Pennsylvania. Born, raised in a town called Grampian, Pennsylvania. Nestled in the hills of Clearfield County. Grampian's named after the Scotland Hills of Grampian, so it's got a Scottish background. Rolling green mountainous hills of Pennsylvania. Grampian was a small town. When I was growing up, it was a coal mining town. About 500, 800 people. And it's interesting to think that in today's day of small towns and businesses and working, that a town of that size would have over seven different coal companies within that town. So it was a booming little town. It was a good time. 70's was a good time of life because you got up in the morning, you went out on your way and jump on your bicycle and play with the neighbors and the friends, and you could travel miles away. And as long as you were home by the time the street light came on or it got dark out, that's when it was time to be home. And we just lived in a day and an age that you could run and play and be free and talk to people and didn't have no fears like we do today. So kind of linger for those days again. You know, it was more about a simpler life, family life. I'm the youngest of four. I have my oldest brother John, and I have a brother Tom, and a sister Mary Ann. And grew up living, of course, my mom and dad. My grandmother lived with us. She lived with us until the day that she died. She lived to a ripe age of 89 years old. Again, you just got up. We had gardens and had to mow grass and feed the chickens and feed the rabbits and feed the ducks and just again a lot of just a lot. I think I had a lot of memories of just being able to go play and have fun with the friends. I mean, the small town. I go back. I remember. Again, I was probably 7, 8 years old maybe at the time, and I remember every year when school was out, we had the Grampian Elementary School, which is now closed, and the kids in town, from the seniors right down to to the youngest ones, we would when school was out, we'd all go to this local lot in town, and everybody had to bring a white t-shirt, and they picked teams for baseball, and then they dyed the t-shirts to that color, and again we played baseball during the summer. So and it wasn't an organized little league program or nothing. It was just a bunch of, just like the movie Sandlot. That's what it was. We just went to the lot and played baseball, and we had rosters and we had teams. And us kids, once again, we'd go into the woods and find the biggest grapevines we could, and the highest cliff we could, and we would swing those grapevines out, out over those cliffs and come back. And you go back and think about it, my gosh, I don't think I'd let my kids do that. So we guess we were a little crazy. No one ever got hurt though, but we would swing the grapevines, and then you'd go back and eat corn. And when we were done at camp every Sunday night, all the lady folk would go to the car, and all the men and the boys would stand around and pee on the fire to make sure the fire was out. So we all peed on the fire and put the fire out, and we'd go home and start the week all over again. I think I was in 5th grade. I started delivering newspapers, and I delivered newspapers from 5th grade until I was a senior in high school. And then when I was probably maybe 9th, 10th grade, there was a local grocery store in town. I would come home from school, deliver my newspapers, and I would work in the store, stocking shelves and cleaning up. And I'd do that in the evenings too. And so, I always had a good work ethic, and got out of high school and I went to Alliance College in Cambridge Springs, and I got my degree in tool and die design. And then I went to work for North American Refractories, which they had a engineering office in Curwensville, and I worked for them. I think it was it was till 1993, and then we moved a couple times, but right out of college, or during college, I should say, is when I met my wife, Vicki, and Vicki Jones. So that's your Aunt Vicki, and that's your mother's sister. And we got married in 1984, and we moved to Curwensville, and we had Anthony and Andrea. 1987, 86 and 87. Anthony and Andrea are our two oldest. And then we had Janine and Jeanette, our next two children. I can tell you my story, or I can tell you the true story. So which story do you want?
Let's hear your story.
Well, my story, it's somewhat the truth to the story, but I had a very good a friend in college. His name was Dan Patuch, and God rest his soul. He had cancer and died. He was in his 40s when he passed away. But Dan kind of fixed me up with Vicki, and what we did is, I guess Dan got a hold of Vicki, and she had an apartment because she was going to barber school, and she was. Dan says, well, if you bring the ladies, and he says, I'll bring the beer. And so Vicki had her apartment, and Dan, we got a keg of beer, and we weren't 21 at the time either. So I got a keg of beer. We went to her apartment, and it was a pretty wild night. They even had a knife fight up there that night for somebody from the area. So it was a big difference from a little small town guy like me to come from a town of 500 and be in the city of Erie, and it was different. But I met her, and then we went out and dated, and then of course I always tell my children this, and they don't know if this is a fact or fiction, but I always say that in the Erie there's Beach One. They used to always say Beach One was the nudist beach. And I'd always say that I met Vicki on Beach One day. So kids always get a good laugh out of that. But so we're not sure if that's true or not. But that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Material things, social status. Honestly, that's not needed. At the end of the day, it's all simple. Get up in the morning and practice your beliefs and walk this straight and righteous path, and it'll all work out. You talk about it's not so much, it's not a material money thing. I have a saying in my life. I always said, if the good Lord wanted me to be rich, he'd leave a basket of money on my doorstep, and I go to work every day and there's never a basket of money there. So I guess I wasn't meant to be rich, but I'm richer in a lot of other ways that probably people that have a lot of money, they don't have the gratifications that I have. So maybe we'll just chord out, as we'd say. We're just going to chord out. And hope I've answered your questions and shed a little light on who I am. And I guess I never did get to mention that. So I got 4 kids and I got 6 grandkids. So that's a little bit of a legacy right there, won't you say?